When you think about the greatest female characters in fiction, certain names keep coming up like clockwork. Ellen Ripley from Alien, Sarah Connor from Terminator, the Bride from Kill Bill. All these women are iconic, not just because they're badass, but because they're layered. They're human. They've got arcs that don't just elevate them, but in some ways redefine how we think about female characters in popular media. And while Hollywood nowadays loves to crank out these strong female leads, most of them end up being less like characters and more like branding exercises. They're not people with flaws, contradictions, or actual inner lives. They're bullet points like, she can fight, or she don't need no man, turn into screenplay form. And it doesn't feel empowering. It feels shallow. Like Kendall Jenner solves police brutality with a Pepsi shallow. And this is exactly why Sadie Adler from Red Dead Redemption 2 hit me like a goddamn train. Because in a game filled with unforgettable characters, Arthur, Dutch, John, Micah, Sadie stands tall not only as the best female character Rockstar ever wrote, but honestly one of the best written women in gaming period, and maybe even fiction as a whole. Let me show you why. When you first meet Sadie, she's not a gunslinging outlaw, she's not one of the gang, she's not even introduced in a blaze of glory. Instead, she's huddled in a cabin, her husband freshly murdered, her life ripped apart. It's brutal, but it's also quiet. And that's what makes it so effective. Rockstar could have gone the easy route and made Sadie show up already hardened, already capable. But they don't. Instead, they start with devastation. They give you a woman at the absolute lowest point in her life, where she's nothing more than a cornered animal. And then they let you watch her rebuild herself, piece by piece, in the ashes of everything she's lost. And this isn't some Disney-style losses motivation moment where the trauma is just backstory. No, you get to witness moments of her grief, her anger, her rage. And most importantly, you see how she chooses to channel it. She doesn't crumble, she doesn't fade into the background, she transforms. Not immediately, but slowly, over time.
Okay, here we are.
So, what's the plan? I shoot the shopkeeper while you...
No! You insane?
I thought we was outlaws.
Outlaws, not idiots. We rob fools that rob other people. These people, they're just trying to get by. So you head on in there and you buy some food to eat. And no guns.
You sure?
This time, there'll be time for killing soon enough.
You can feel the awkwardness of someone trying to find not just their footing, but in general to figure out who they are now. They can't just be the person they were. It's impossible. It's this slow burn evolution that makes Sadie stand out from almost every other female character in gaming. Think about it. How often do you see women in games or movies who are written like checklists? They're the fighter, or the love interest. Or worse, they're the character who exists just to get fridged so the male protagonist has something to be sad about. Sadie dodges all those traps. Instead, what you get is something rare. A woman whose arc is allowed to breathe. She's allowed to be messy. She's allowed to be angry. She's allowed to make mistakes. And through all that, she becomes something so much more powerful than just a stock, strong female lead. She becomes real. And the best part is, Sadie doesn't become the female Arthur Morgan. She doesn't just take the mold of the male protagonist and slap a new coat of paint on it. Her arc is different. Her reasons for fighting, for surviving, for becoming who she is, they're rooted in her experiences as a woman in that brutal, lawless world. And Rockstar actually acknowledges that, without ever turning her into some kind of symbol. Sadie isn't all women. She's not meant to be the universal representation. She's Sadie Adler, and she exists for herself. That might sound obvious, but in an industry where female characters are often forced to carry the burden of standing in for everyone, that's sadly rare. And by the time you see her fully emerge as an outlaw in her own right, it feels earned. You watch her bleed for it. You watch her claw her way to it. And that's why when Sadie finally picks up a gun, it doesn't just feel cathartic. It feels inevitable that this is her new path.
I don't want no pity. Just treat me equal and know
Nobody's taking nothing from me ever again.
Just don't kill the camp cook. Please. Hey there! Hey,
What you folks up to?
just heading home.
You're in Lemoyne Raider country.
Keep it cool.
You need to
Sadie.
pay a toll to pass through here.
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so? How about you pull over right now?
Pull over.
That's what I said.
Hey, how's about this?
If Red Dead Redemption 2 is a story about anything, it's about people trapped in a world that doesn't want them anymore. Outlaws running out of road. And within that group, every member of the Van der Linde gang serves as a mirror, a way to look at the same struggle from different angles. Arthur, the conflicted soldier, John, the reluctant family man, Dutch, the delusional leader. And then you get Sadie, who bursts into this world like a wild animal backed into a corner. And her presence changes the chemistry of the camp. At first she doesn't really belong. She's this grieving widow hanging around people who, let's be honest, have zero reason to keep her alive. If this were a harsher story, Sadie would have been discarded in the snow. But the gang takes her in, and it's not necessarily due to kindness or altruism. It's survival with a mix of Dutch's way of building his gang. Arthur in particular becomes this strange anchor for her, but she doesn't fall into the trap of being a love interest for him. She's not there to soothe Arthur's pain or to replace Mary, or to make his story more tragic in some way. Instead, she and Arthur build this mutual respect based on something simple. They recognize the fire in each other. Arthur sees in Sadie the same kind of rage he carries, that heavy cocktail of grief, anger, and defiance against the world and what it has taken. And Sadie sees in Arthur the one thing she lacks: restraint. It's this give and take that makes their relationship compelling. Take some of the missions where Arthur rides out with her. She's impatient, ready to strike, ready to burn down everything just to feel something other than grief. And over time, Arthur becomes like a mentor to her. You can't just charge into every fight head first. But at the same time, he doesn't try to break her spirit. He doesn't tell her to calm down, to be ladylike, or to suppress her rage. He respects it. He respects her. He just doesn't want that rage to fully consume her. This relationship works because it avoids cliches. Sadie doesn't become Arthur's student in the traditional sense, and Arthur doesn't become her savior. Instead, they push each other towards something resembling balance. She reminds Arthur what it means to fight, not out of obligation to Dutch or the gang, but because sometimes people need killing, because you decide it's the right thing to do. And Arthur reminds Sadie that survival isn't just about vengeance. It's about choosing your battles so you can live to see the next one. But there's also this tenderness to this relationship between them. One of the things that stuck with me is how protective Arthur becomes of her. Not in a patronizing way, but because he recognizes that she's walking a razor's edge. The world already took everything from her, and now she's building herself out of violence. Arthur knows what that does to a person. He's lived it. And in some ways you can feel him silently hoping she doesn't end up like him. Hollowed out, living only for the next score or for some far-off dream of freedom. That's why when Arthur's health starts failing, and his arc becomes this slow spiral towards tragedy, it's powerful that Sadie is one of the few people he trusts to carry on. Because in a story about loss, betrayal, and disillusionment, Sadie is proof that sometimes from the ashes, something strong enough to survive can emerge.
I ain't chopping vegetables for a living.
Oh, I'm sorry, madam. Was there insufficient feathers in your pillow?
I ain't lazy, Mr. Morgan. I'll work, but not this.
Well, ain't cooking work?
My husband and I, we shared the work. All of it. I was out in the fields. I can hunt, carry a knife, or use a gun. But I tell you, you keep me here, I'll skin this fat old coot and serve him for dinner.
Watch your damn mouth, you crazy goddamn fishwife! Enough, both of you! Well, come with me then. You want to head out there, run with the men? So be it. But we do more than just hunting. We're hunted. And them things hunting us, well, they got guns of their own.
I ain't afraid of dying.
Good. You need anything, Mr. Pearson? Maybe me and Mrs. Adler gonna take a little ride.
Yeah, sure. Here's my list, and can you post this letter for me while you're there?
Sure. Come on, Princess. Are you coming with me then, woman?
Her presence also has this ripple effect on the gang dynamic as a whole. She doesn't have the baggage of years under Dutch's spell like the others. She doesn't buy into this bullshit mythology about the last score or a life of freedom. She doesn't care. Sadie's motivations is pure survival, pure vengeance, pure forward momentum. And that makes her both dangerous and refreshing. Of course, she's appreciative of being saved by Dutch, but it doesn't mean she believes his vision. She's only loyal to herself. In that sense, Sadie is almost like an audience surrogate. While everyone else is trapped in Dutch's cult of personality, Sadie's the one saying what we're all thinking. What the hell are you people even doing here? She cuts through the bullshit. She questions Dutch. She sees Micah for the snake he is. She's unburdened by nostalgia or unconditional loyalty. And that makes her one of the most sane voices in the whole goddamn game. And speaking of audience, if you made it this far, you're my type of people. Make sure to subscribe and let's keep going. By embedding Sadie into the gang, Rockstar created this fascinating tension, because she's both insider and outsider. She rides with the crew, she fights with them, but she's never one of them. She's something different, she's something more raw, and that perspective is what allows her to grow into her own instead of being swallowed by Dutch's doomed family.
How are you? Been quite a journey since I joined you fellas.
Yes.
And now you and Dutch have joined high society. My lord above.
Yeah, it seems so.
I think my days in polite society are over.
Well, I just saw Bill Williamson at a party at the San Denise's mayor's house. If he can do it, anyone can.
Will you get any leads?
Yeah, I think so.
You know so, Arthur Morgan. Come on, we need to talk. Mrs. Adler, will you excuse us?
When you gonna let me come robbing with you, Dutch?
My lord, a few more like her, we could take over the whole world.
A few more like her, there wouldn't be much of a world left.
Yes, perhaps.
The problem with the way most female characters are written in big budget media today is pretty simple. They're not people. They're ideas. They're a representation. They're neat little corporate approved slogans in human form. You've probably seen it 100 times. She's quippy, flawless in combat, and conveniently has no interior life beyond reminding the audience that, hey, women can be heroes too. And yeah, women should be heroes. Nobody's arguing otherwise. But when you flatten a character into one-dimensional nothing but talking points, what you end up isn't empowerment. It's a cardboard cutout. It's a mannequin in a leather jacket. That's why so many of these characters vanish from memory the moment the credits roll. They're built to serve an agenda, not to live as characters. And the irony is that it ends up doing the very opposite of what it sets out to achieve. Instead of showing women as complex and human, it reduces them into brands. We, as humans, are flawed. Our flaws makes us human. And thankfully, Sadie Adler is not designed to be an icon. She's not there to carry the weight of all women everywhere on her back. She's not spouting one-liners of not needing a man while dodging bullets in slow motion. She's grieving. She's angry. She's complicated. She's petty. She's violent. She's loyal but only on her terms. In other words, she's a person. And that makes her infinitely more powerful than any flawless comedy-written action figures. What makes Sadie great isn't that she can kill a dozen men with dual pistols. Though she can, and it's terrifying, it's that we know why she's doing it. We know the pain that fuels her. We know the way she's remaking herself from the ground up because she doesn't see another option. And even when her choices are horrifying, we understand them because they make sense for who she is. And let's be real, Sadie is not a role model. She's not somebody you'd want your daughter to grow up to be. But that's exactly why she works. Because the best characters, Ripley, Sarah Connor, the Bride, they weren't role models either. They were survivors. They were people caught in situations that forced them to evolve into something terrifyingly capable. Compare that to what we get today, where the word strong has been boiled down to a single dimension: physical power. But strength isn't just muscle. It isn't just being able to beat up the bad guys. Strength is resilience, not in the absence of pain, but the growth that comes from it. Strength is transformation, even if you're forced to become someone you never planned on being. Strength is deciding and living with your choices. Strength is picking up your teeth from the floor and asking yourself what the fight was worth. Sadie embodies strength not because she's untouchable, but because she was broken, and she built herself back up slowly through mistakes. She's still broken, but it's expressed differently now. And none of this happens from her seeking anyone else's approval. She doesn't do it to live up to Arthur's respect or Dutch's vision. She does it because she has nothing left to lose. And that kind of motivation is far scarier and far more believable than the sanitized motivations we see handed to so many female leads today. And maybe some people might argue that Sadie isn't the kind of character we should celebrate because she's too violent, too extreme, too consumed by vengeance. And maybe that's a fair point. But here's my counter. Since when does every female character have to be inspirational? Since when do they have to be a positive representation first and a character second? We don't hold male characters to that standard. Nobody watched Tony Montana and Scarface and said, "Oh yes, this is the kind of man young boys should look up to." Nobody played GTA 5 and argued that Trevor Phillips was a bad male representation. They're compelling because they're messed up. They're human. They're interesting. So why is it that when we get female character like Sadie, the first instinct is to ask whether she's a good representation? Why can't she just be compelling in her own right? Without trying to turn Sadie into a symbol, Rockstar managed to write a character that's allowed to be herself. And because of that, she ends up being more authentic, more iconic, and honestly more empowering than the cardboard action doll studios keep trying to sell us.
This is it.
You okay?
Peachy?
You sure?
No, I ain't sure.
You still working?
Is anybody still working? The whole goddamn place full of people bickering, fighting and lying. It makes me real sad.
I know. I need someone to ride with me.
Do what?
Finish off them O'Driscolls. I hear the last of them is holed up at Hanging Dog Ranch.
I don't have it in me no more. I saw Colm swing. I just don't care.
I was a married woman. You know what they did to me. And to my husband? But you're the only one of these fools that I trust. I've got to do this.
I'll tell you what, I'll do it. But there's something you could help me with.
Sure.
You, me, and John. This whole thing is pretty much done, but Dutch still has our money hidden away, so...
But how do you mean?
When the time comes, just be ready.
What do you mean?
I mean, if we can get out of here with money, you and me, we're more ghosts than people. And none of that loyalty matters.
Jesus. Okay. I'm with you.
Well, then you got yourself a gun. What's left of one.
Thank you, Arthur.
When you strip it all down, Sadie Adler is a story about grief. That's her DNA. And the way Rockstar handles that is what elevates her beyond almost any other revenge-driven character I can think of. Because let's face it, revenge is one of the oldest stories in the book. You kill my family, I kill you back. It's Shakespeare. It's pulp westerns. It's basically every second action movie. But what most of those stories get wrong is how they treat grief as a switch. Somebody suffers a loss, they flip the switch, and bam! Now they're a hardened warrior. That's not how grief works. Grief is messy, it's contradictory, it eats you alive and leaves you with nothing. And then, if you're still standing, it shapes you into something you barely recognize. And that's what we see with Sadie. Sadie doesn't just channel her grief, she becomes it. She reinvents herself as an outlaw not because she wants to, not because it's a dream or destiny, but because it's the only way she can keep breathing. Every gunfight, every raid, every body she leaves in the dirt, it's all her way of refusing to let grief bury her alive. And yet what makes it so compelling is that Rockstar never glamorizes it. Sadie's violence is cathartic. Sure, who doesn't love storming a Driscoll camp with her at your side? But there's also something deeply unsettling about it. Because you realize pretty quickly, Sadie isn't healing, she's escalating. She's digging deeper into her rage because the second she stops fighting, she has to sit with her loss. That's what makes her terrifying. She's not fighting to win. She's fighting because she just can't stop. And if that sounds familiar, it's because it echoes some of the greatest revenge-driven characters we've ever seen. Just like the Bride in Kill Bill, or even John Wick. But here's the difference. Those characters are written like myths. They're hyper-stylized, almost operatic in the way they turn grief into violence. Sadie, by contrast, feels grounded, messy, unpolished. You can believe this woman exists. And that's why she's so haunting. Because we don't cheer for her when she gets her revenge. We worry about her. We know what it's doing to her soul. We know she's not coming back from this.
Piece of shit!
You okay?
Yeah. He was a good man, my Jakey. We was always sweet on one another.
I'm sure.
Yeah. I miss him every day, every moment. They turned me into a monster, Arthur. But my memories of him, they still pure.
I ain't even got that.
Aside from my Jake, you're the best man I've known.
I know the company you keep. The competition ain't too fierce.
The really brilliant part is how Arthur becomes the audience stand-in for this tension. He's the one saying what we're thinking, and it raises an uncomfortable question. Is Sadie actually surviving her grief, or is she just delaying it? Is this transformation a victory, or is it a slow burn tragedy with a singular destination? That ambiguity is what makes her so much richer than the average revenge character. Because she's not just about vengeance, she's about the psychology of loss. About how trauma doesn't just scar you, it rebuilds you into someone else entirely. And sometimes that someone else is dangerous, both to the world around you and you yourself. One of the most chilling things about Sadie is how by the end of the game, she feels almost alien compared to who we met at the start. That grieving widow in the cabin is gone, dead, buried. In her place is this cold, sharp, unstoppable force. And the scariest part is that she doesn't even want to go back. She doesn't want to heal. She doesn't want to soften. She's comfortable being the blade her grief forged. And maybe that's the truest, rawest take on grief I've ever seen in a game. Because not everyone comes out of loss a better person. Not everyone finds peace. Some people only find fire. And Sadie is fire.
Colm O'Driscoll, may God, in his infinite wisdom, have mercy upon your soul. Whenever you are ready.
Now you know how it feels to watch somebody you love die. You ruined my life!
The Western has always been about men. Gunslingers, sheriffs, outlaws, drifters. Men against the wilderness, men against each other, men against time itself. And women? In classic westerns they have usually existed in one of three flavors. The damsel. She's the one kidnapped by bandits, tied to the railroad tracks, or held hostage so the hero has something to fight for. She's less a character than a plot device. The Madonna. The pure, virtuous woman waiting back in town. She represents civilization, the home, the family, the domestic life the cowboy will either embrace or reject. The fallen woman. usually a saloon girl or prostitute marked by tragedy, and doomed to either die for her sins or exist as a temptation the hero resists. Those roles have been recycled for over a century, both in Hollywood and in games inspired by it. And to be blunt, they're pretty fucking boring. They're limiting. They reinforce the idea that women in the West only existed in relation to men, as prizes, as burdens, as background. And on the surface, Sadie's story begins in a similar archetype. The widow. Her husband is killed, her home is burned, she's hopeless in the snow. If this were a John Ford film from the 1950s, that's where her story would end. She'd either fade into mourning off-screen, or serve as motivation for a male hero to do the avenging. But thankfully, Rockstar flips that old trope. Instead of being the reason for someone else's story, Sadie claims the narrative for herself. Her husband's death isn't the prologue to Arthur's revenge, it's the prologue to hers. The widow doesn't fade, she fights. She enters the outlaw mythos on her own terms. And once she does, she's not slotted in any of those old archetypes. She doesn't become the love interest, she doesn't become the moral compass, she doesn't become the prostitute with a heart of gold. She becomes something Westerns almost never allowed women to be. A gunslinger in her own right. And this isn't just window dressing. Sadie's presence actively challenges the men around her. She forces Arthur, Dutch, John, and even the player to reckon with the fact that women aren't bound to the sidelines of the Western myth, that they can carry the same rage, the same violence, the same outlaw spirit, and in some cases even more purely than the men who've been corrupted by ego, nostalgia, or dreams of Tahiti. Think about it. By the end of Red Dead 2, Dutch is delusional, Arthur is dying, John is torn between two lives, and Micah is, well, exactly who you expected him to be. The men of the gang are unraveling, while Sadie is sharper than ever. She's not weighed down by Dutch's lies or the dream of the last score. She has already burned her own life to the ground, so there's nothing left to cling to. That makes her the most dangerous and the most free of all of them. In many ways, Sadie is the Western archetype pushed to its logical extreme. She's the gunslinger born from trauma, the outlaw forged in blood, the survivor who refuses to be domesticated. But because she's a woman, her very existence in that role feels like a rebellion against the genre itself. She's a living rejection of the damsel Madonna prostitute trinity. And what's so powerful about this is that Rockstar doesn't frame it like a gimmick. They don't hang a lantern on it with a dialogue like, "Oh wow, you're a woman who can shoot?" The game just lets her be. She kills, she leads, she fights, and the world adjusts around her. That normalization is more subversive than any big speech could ever be. By the end of the game, Sadie feels less like a character who exists within the Western genre, and more like a challenge to it. A reminder that history was full of women who didn't fit into these shitty Hollywood molds. Like Pearl Hart, who robbed a stagecoach in men's clothing in 1899 and became a media sensation. Or Belle Starr, the bandit queen who was a notorious gunslinger at the time. She also served as an inspiration for Black Belle, who you meet in the game. The fact that we so rarely see them represented properly as actual human beings says more about the genre's limitation than it does about reality. Sadie Adler in that sense isn't just one of the greatest female characters in gaming. She's one of the greatest Western characters, period, because she reclaims space in a genre that has spent over a century pretending she didn't exist.
Come on now, Micah! At least die like a man!
Hellfire! It's just like old times.
Come on! You turn around and start walking!
You got me! Just like old times, All manner of folk paying social calls.
In the epilogue, when John is trying to piece together his life, building a ranch, raising Jack, doing the whole normal life thing, it's Sadie who drags him back into the outlaw world. Not because she's reckless, not because she's addicted to the life, but because she chooses it. By that point, Sadie's transformation is complete. She's no longer the grieving widow trying to find her footing. She's a professional, a mercenary, a bounty hunter. Someone who doesn't just survive in chaos, she thrives in it. And that choice matters, because John spends the epilogue wrestling with whether he can ever leave violence behind. He wants peace, but violence keeps dragging him back. Sadie is the opposite. She doesn't even want peace. The idea of going back to some quiet domestic life makes no sense to her. What's left to build? Who would she even build it for? Violence isn't dragging her back. It's where she wants to be. The contrast is powerful because it reframes what survival means. For John, survival means settling down, reclaiming family, becoming someone better. For Sadie, survival means embracing the fire, because without it, she's nothing. And that's both beautiful and heartbreaking. It's beautiful because we see a woman who refuses to be defined by what was taken from her, and instead defines herself by what she chooses to become. But it's heartbreaking because you realize Sadie will never find peace. She's destined to keep moving, keep fighting, keep burning until there's nothing left. And maybe she wouldn't want it any other way, but as players, as people, we can't help but wonder what her life might have been if she chose differently. This is where Sadie cements herself as one of the greatest characters Rockstar has ever written, because her endgame doesn't tie up neatly. It doesn't give us the comfortable, "and then she lived happily ever after." Instead, it leaves us with a paradox. Sadie survived. She won. But what she won is a life most of us would see as unbearable. That's why when the game ends, she doesn't feel gone. She feels unfinished, like she's still out there. Sadie's endgame also forces us to look back at larger themes of Red Dead 2. The game is obsessed with the question of freedom. Dutch preaches it constantly. Arthur struggles with it. John chases it in its own way. But Sadie actually achieves it. She's free in the truest, most terrifying sense of the word. No family, no loyalty, no illusions. It's freedom without peace, survival without healing, and it's brilliant because it's messy. It's not aspirational, but it's unforgettable. And maybe that's the real legacy of Sadie Adler. She's not the kind of character who teaches you how to live. She's the kind of character who forces you to confront what survival really costs.
They must be camping down there.
Why they hanging around?
Probably waiting for a boat. There's supposed to be a storm coming through, so maybe that's delayed them?
Perhaps. So what do we do now?
I'm gonna go get them.
You.
Me. You just cover me. I ain't getting you killed out there.
But it's okay for you?
I wanna die. And besides, those bastards don't look that tough.
So why does Sadie Adler stand out when so many other characters and games and movies and shows fade into the background? It's not because she's the toughest. Ripley fought aliens, Sarah Connor fought the apocalypse, the bride cut her way through an army of assassins. Sadie's kill count is high, but that's not what makes her unforgettable. Sadie's unforgettable because she feels real, because she's messy, because her arc is both inspiring and horrifying, cathartic and tragic, empowering and unsettling, all at once. She's not a checkbox strong female lead, she's not a backdrop for a man's story, she's not a symbol, she's a person. And that's what makes her so rare. In a medium that keeps giving us women as archetypes, as mascots, as marketing slogans, Sadie Adler cuts through all of that. She isn't there to reassure us. She isn't there to flatter us. She's there to remind us of something truer and harder, that strength costs and that survival leaves scars. And that's why, when I think about the greatest female characters I've ever seen, Sadie Adler most definitely stands among the best.
I think I need to be alone for a bit.
I understand. You, might want to get yourself cleaned up.
Thank you, Arthur.
And if you want to see the other side of this outlaw coin, I've also done a full breakdown of Micah Bell you can check out next. And as always, thanks for watching.